do this. Oh.
You know, I was going to say, Ethan, you just don't look like Liz.
I am Liz, and I just had a rough couple of nights. So the baby kept me up, and I wasn't feeling well, and so this is what happens. I turn into Ethan. Oh yeah, we're live. I know this is part of. So welcome. This is Lunch and Learn with Liz, OCD, and the family. If you're just joining us, surprise, I'm not a Trondsen. Also, Liz is not here. I'll explain more in a bit. In the meantime, as you're coming in, we always like to take a couple minutes. Please feel free to say hello. Let us know where you're from. And we always like to give shout outs. This is part 2 of a previous discussion about OCD in the family with Chris Trondsen, Lead Advocate, and his mom, Liz, and his sister, Selena. And so if you viewed the first one, we will be picking up where we left off. If you didn't view the first one, it's okay. You will still get lots out of this one. You can go back and check out the first one as well. So about a minute to go. So please, again, feel free to say hi and let us know you're here. I know you're just coming in. If you're just joining us, my name is Ethan. You're here with Lunch and Learn with Dr. Liz. I am neither a doctor or Liz. So kind of 0 for 2 here. So, stick around if you want to, basically, Hi, Christiana from South Carolina. I hope you're well.
I wonder, is it like super snowy out there?
Christiana, is it super, it's actually really pretty here, but we're, just to the left of South Carolina. So yeah, if you're just joining us, please say hello. Let us know where you're from, and we will get started momentarily. Hey, Nikki Bradley in Dublin. Hey, Nikki, good to see you. And there's, oh my gosh, Mom, this is the other Liz. This is my mom, Liz Smith. So
Hey!
we have to, Chris and I have been saying, Mom, that we have to get you in person because there's the other short firecracker known as Liz, Chris's mom. So hi, welcome. I know you can't meet, but anyway. Majo, I hope I'm saying that right. Hi, Chris, Elizabeth, Selena, and Ethan. Oh, Majo from India. Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. Oh, don't even need a coat today. It's warm in South Carolina. Hi, Felice. Hi, Valerie. Liz wrote, hi, Mom. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. My name is, well, first of all, welcome to Lunch and Learn with Liz, OCD in the family, part 2 with the Trondsen family. My name is Ethan. Unfortunately, Liz is feeling under the weather today, so I am gratefully filling in, but we're all sending her lots of good vibes and hoping she feels better soon. With that, my name is Ethan. I'm also a national advocate with the IOCDF, which means I have OCD and like to scream about it. I was on last night. You guys viewed just Ethan. Let's get through some quick housekeeping, and then we'll jump right into a conversation with Chris, Liz, and Selena. So this Lunch and Learn with Liz, it's confusing, but bear with me. It is intended to serve as educational content. Is not intended to replace therapy because I'm not a therapist or a doctor. I'm nothing. For treatment-related questions, please be sure to work with your local provider or contact a local clinician. International OCD Foundation is not a crisis hotline. Should not be used if you're in distress or feel unsafe. If you're in a crisis or ever feeling suicidal or unsafe, please go to your local emergency room. Call 911 or call the Suicide Prevention Hotline at 800-273-8255. Also, we always want to be respectful and kind to others, create as safe a space as possible. This is being recorded and will be live and being recorded on all social platforms. And so please keep that in mind as you ask questions. But at the end of the day, we're all here to support one another and have a value-driven, informative, and supportive conversation. So with that, I welcome back Chris, Liz, and Selena. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you for having us.
I'm so excited. This is great for me. I get Chris all the time, but Liz is a super special treat and really one of the only reasons I'm friends with Chris. And then this is my right, yeah. And this is my first time meeting Selena, although I've heard about her for years. And so I'm super excited to see Selena face to face.
Pleasure's mine.
Oh, thanks, Selena. So with that, I know last on part 1, Liz, your mom turned into a circle. It's like a superpower. It's a terrible superpower. Hopefully it's not me. If you can hear us, Liz, if you want to jump on and jump back off, or other way around, jump off and jump back on, that might help. We'll wait for her to jump back on. But when last we spoke, hi Liz. When last we spoke, we were hearing about your journey Chris your OCD journey, your experience as a child, where you came from, and how it affected the family with Liz and Selena, and the dynamics of the family and relationship. I know when we last left off, you had just completed treatment. And so I think we'd like to let you take it from there, Chris, and maybe back up a little bit just for those that maybe didn't see the first one. So what did treatment, and you don't need to go deep dive in, but what did treatment look like for you essentially?
Yeah, no, I think the biggest, what I wanted to leave people with last time, and what I'll reiterate at the start of this talk, is when I entered treatment, one of the good things that my family and I did, well, really, this is the family that helped me, so you're seeing them, but my mom, my sister to some point, and then with my therapist, is there was this conversation that this is the most important thing ever. You need to put this priority. Everything else that I cared about will not get back. I will not get back there until I prioritize mental health treatment. So when I was in therapy, like therapy was basically like my life at that point. It was every week I was going to therapy. When I was at home, I had my exposure list on the fridge. I was doing my exposures, checking them off, going to session, doing exposures with my therapist. We were talking about what works that week, what we needed to step up, what we didn't. So obviously, when we talk about exposure response prevention, I mean, really what my treatment was like is to start getting back out in the world. At that point, I was pretty much housebound and only leaving the house to meet up with my mom to go to therapy. So it was really getting me back out there while dropping the compulsions and just trying to re-enter life and get back to where I was before treatment. So, I think that's the biggest thing I always tell people is, when I have a client or when I hear somebody at the conference and they're like, yeah, I go to my therapist every once in a while, I skip some sessions, I haven't gone to therapy in a couple of months. It's like, for me, it was very consistent. It was every week. It was 100% dedication, because that's really what it takes to beat this disorder.
Yeah, you're all in or all out for sure. Felice, totally agree with you. And just so everybody knows, we'll be doing a lot of Q&A toward the back half of this, so please feel free to ask questions. Liz, as this was going on with Chris, what was it like on your end? What were you saying? How are you feeling?
Well, at first I felt very hopeless before we found the right treatment. And once we found the right treatment, I absolutely trusted the therapist and the clinic where we were. And I believe that they were doing the right thing and that my son would get better. And then I supported him any way possible. Not only driving him there, but supporting him with, inspirational stories and encouraging him to keep going. Anything that I was supposed to do, that the therapist said I was supposed to do, that I would do. But for me, his treatment was all consuming for me too. I mean, obviously I still had to go to work, but other than that, it was strictly Chris and his treatment and getting him better and making sure he was safe and all of that.
As Liz and I always like to say, it is definitely a family affair.
Yes.
Selena, and I apologize, let me know if you already covered this, but I'm curious, how are you feeling during this time? And with so much attention on Chris, how did that affect you?
Well, welcome to childhood. I was already used to it, by the way. Just kidding. That's Chris and I relationship. We have a lot of sarcasm and jokes, but yeah, I mean, at the time, obviously, it was difficult to understand. I would say before he had treatment, we kind of touched on that last time of it was just hard already, high school years, which I don't know if many of us look back on fondly anyway, but it was just a very difficult time. And I definitely was left alone a lot. I mean, I just remembered kind of taking myself to soccer practice and doing my homework and feeding myself and kind of just doing everything. And that's not a knock on mom. I mean, that's just, I think it's the reality of treatment. As she said, it's all consuming, and, she still has to work. She still has to pay bills, and your child is in distress and you don't know what's going on. And, so I guess I just kind of kept my head down and was like, she doesn't need one more thing on her plate. But do you end up suffering? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and we've talked about this. So I always kind of hate to bring it up because I don't want mom to feel guilty, but how do you tell mom not to feel guilty ever? Because that's kind of their job, right? but it was hard. It was definitely hard. And I think then for part of it of treatment, I was in college, and I actually really enjoyed it. And then, as I said last time, just felt very guilty though that I was having such a good time, and he wasn't. And that part is still the hard part to this day of just kind of things I wish I would have done better during that time. But I mean, I think it's just hard also to see the effects on both of them. It is very helpless, as Mom said, of I really didn't understand what was going on. And I don't have to tell either of you, this is a very complicated disorder. And it was just, I just didn't understand. All I saw was, this isn't my brother. Who is this person? What is going on? How can someone have been so independent, so outgoing? I mean, we're total opposite in that he would have friends. He'd be just out and about, out of the house at 18. And how could it make him so debilitated? You know, he was like the strongest person I know, and not saying he wasn't strong at that time. He absolutely was strong, but that's just kind of the reality of how this can take over, is to see that difference. And it was very hard to watch.
I really appreciate you being so vulnerable and open and candid. And I didn't know if you covered that before, but I think it's important for people to hear that from a sibling perspective, you know, what it's like to see. And Liz, you know, I know that your kids already dearly love you and respect you, and there's just so much respect, you know, at that time, I think still, but, you know, as a single mother, you know, raising, I mean, I happen to know a lot about Chris's family. So as a single mother, you know, raising two kids and that's a job in and of itself, on top of, you know, supporting the family and attending to Chris's needs and Selena's needs as well. And, you know, we're human beings and we have to offer ourselves a lot of self-compassion and a lot of grace, as, you know, we're all doing it for the first time. We don't get an instruction manual on how this works. So, you know, just tons and tons of love to you, Liz, and to all of you. A quick question, I just out of curiosity, what is the age difference, Chris, between you and Selena?
She's 2 years younger. So
2 years
older.
younger. Okay,
Yeah.
so she's 22. Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Hey, best friend.
2 years and 4 months, Chris.
2 years and
Close
4
enough,
months. So
close
who's
enough.
counting?
So, all right, well, let's jump into, so Chris, what did life look like after treatment? What did re-entry look like for you?
Yeah, no, this is perfect because we didn't get to that last time, and I always want to leave with hope. And so, even though treatment is a grueling process, I mean, you know, Ethan, and we've heard your story and you've talked about it. Like, we wish, right? Like, we go to treatment, you leave after a few months, and life is perfect. But you've spent so many years training yourself to live a certain way, and you have habits, and you have compulsions, and you have all this. So, for me, because it had gotten so bad, I mean, when I finished treatment, I remember, you know, Mom and I, we went to this restaurant up in Los Angeles to celebrate, but it was a weird celebration because I got home, I didn't have any friends, I wasn't dating, I was living at my grandma's pretty much, I mean, what would you call it, Selena? Like her basement. I mean, it was like stereotypical, like I literally had a bed in my grandma's basement. So I was like stereotypically not where you wanted to be at 25. So for me, it was just, I felt lost and I felt hopeless. And, you know, because the therapy was expensive, because it was 4 hours round trip through LA, we didn't continue to see her after, which I think if there was insurance or funding or closer, we might have, but I didn't. So there's just a lot of feeling of loss. So my story immediately after, and I know Ethan, you know, you're a big advocate on speaking about this, the kind of like life after treatment. I think it's important because what I did wrong, which I hope anybody watching this does not do, is I should have had a plan. Like once treatment was done, here's what my life's going to look like. Luckily with my mom, even though I stumbled a little bit, I kind of tapped back into like, what are things that I enjoyed doing? I really wanted to learn Spanish. I enjoyed tennis, martial arts. Those were 3 big things that I wanted to get back. And I liked animals. So I volunteered at an animal shelter. So all 4 of those things I re-entered. But what was challenging is going from being housebound, and even though I had a lot of triggers, I didn't have a lot of external triggers that I couldn't control. Now, being at an animal shelter and I have OCD around getting an illness from a dog and the contamination, or martial arts, I had intrusive thoughts about harming people because when I was younger, I remember hurting somebody in sparring. So all these thoughts and feelings came up. But luckily, what you'll learn in treatment is that the treatment works anywhere. It didn't just work for the things I was dealing with at home. It worked for the things outside of that. So really right after treatment, the short, like the immediate after was me just re-entering life. And that last thing is what was odd is I didn't have any friends. And so in my head, I'm like, oh, I'm going to go on Facebook. I'm going to search up my friends from high school and we're going to reunite and be besties. And it's like, I go on and people are married. They have kids. They've moved out of state. They live out of country. I would message people and people would be like, oh yeah, I remember you from high school. Like, how's things been? And not this like, oh my God, I've missed you. Let's be besties. So it was hard. I had to kind of start over pretty much is how it felt.
Go ahead, Selena.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say this part I think is something, two parts to it, but as Chris said, I think that's a large part that I remember when he first finished treatment and started doing some IOCDF work and going to conferences was really reiterating that, that after treatment plan, because I do remember that time period actually really well. And, and that's what we want to do with these things is be very realistic with treatment. I think sometimes maybe people think it's this, and it's a straight line and it's not. Sometimes, it's, Chris calling mom at 4 a.m. and then she's got to go to work and she hasn't slept. I mean, she is downplaying how difficult that time was and how much work she did. I don't even know if she slept most of those years and still went to her job and still somehow made it all work. And it was not easy and they were stuck in traffic. And, so then he gets to this point and I remember that he's just like, I have nothing. And I think what our mom's really good at is sometimes Chris and I can go to doomsday of like, oh my God, everything that we need to do. And mom's really good about, nope, we take this one at a time. We're going to start at one thing at a time and you break it down into little things. And I think that's what she helped him with on that. And then Chris was really good about, okay, I'm going to start here. I'm going to go to the animal shelter. I'm going to volunteer. I'm going to do this. And then slowly, okay, now I'm going to do martial arts instead of I'm going to do 16 things and overwhelm myself. But I do remember him saying, this is really hard. My calendar is wide open. And especially for someone like him, who's super outgoing, I probably would have been like, yay, nap time. I don't want to talk to people. But not for him. And something, I just remember he struggled with a lot during this time, which I'm sure anyone can attest to that has, a life-changing disorder is, the guilt of, as he said, you're going on social media, you're looking at things and everybody's life is over here and you're just starting again. And it's like, oh gosh, now I have to go through college. I have to do all these things, but everyone else is done. And it was a lot of comparing his life. It was a lot of, I think it took years, not to call you out on it, and that's not a bad thing, but I think it took him years to really not feel guilty that his life wasn't where he imagined it. And I remember mom and I kept telling him, and again, easier said than done, right? But we kept telling him, like, you got to give yourself some grace. My God, you're battling this disorder. Who cares you didn't finish college yet? Like, you finished, and who cares how long it took you? And you did it. And some people without this disorder don't follow through or finish. Like, you have to meet yourself where you are and what your abilities are and celebrate them and go at your own pace, because the people you're looking at on social media didn't have OCD. So, yeah, that's great that they did these things, but they weren't battling what you were battling. And I think, and Chris, I think sorry about that. I'm rambling, but I think Chris can add more to that, but of what that was like. I just remember a lot of guilt and like sadness and kind of those stages of grief, because you're grieving the loss of your life that you thought you were going to have.
I love that, Selena, and I also like saying love for your brother. You're so passionate about it. It's awesome, and I'm gonna come to Liz, but I want to talk to Liz in a second. But Chris and I have talked about this. I relate to this so much. I spent most of my 30s chasing what I had missed, and really fell into my own when I finally accepted where I was, and accepted where I was where exactly where I needed to be. And that's where life started to take shape for me, and things became, I started to go with the rhythm flow versus trying to continuously swim upstream. And so I completely relate to everything that you're saying, and Chris's journey as well. I did the exact same thing. I also want to point out that I really mean this. Like Chris is very humble about this, but I really feel like Chris's journey to wellness is a true testament to. I feel like he's the DIY of OCD. I think that so many of us, when we're really at the bottom, and when Chris was, Chris was so sick, and you could easily say, oh, he needed to be in residential, and he needed to have 24-hour therapy 24/7 and blah, blah, blah. And 100%, but Chris is a true testament to like what you can do with once a week therapy, or once every couple of weeks, like when you're like, your life is at stake, your family's life is at stake. And, you realize that you have to be your own therapist. And so all the work has to happen outside of therapy. And Chris touches on it in his story, but it's like, it's really amazing, because I know for me, I had 10.5 months of every day, 5 hours a day, 5 days a week, and then residential. And I can't imagine like getting through that, and at the end of the day, that should give you so much encouragement about the therapy process and the modality of treatment, whether it's exposure response prevention, or in this case, or acceptance commitment therapy, or whatever. It works. You just have to buy into it. You have to go all in. And Chris is an example of somebody that went all in. He went for his weekly lesson, and then it was all about him, and he did it. And I just want to give you such major props for that, because it always is so inspiring to hear your journey and your path to wellness, and what that looked like, and how it's different from mine. But takes crazy guts, and I have so much respect for you.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. That means a lot. And I always look back at my younger self, and I'm like, whoa, why? I could barely imagine going through it now, let alone at that age. And I even though I think acceptance and commitment therapy didn't have a name back then, I mean, that was one of the things that I was doing, is I was just tapping into who I saw myself as, and I wanted to be that person again. And I really, each week to me, I thought is like, I'm captain of one team, OCD's captain of the other, and I'm going to go home this week, and either I'm going to come victorious and be able to, come to the next session and say, look at all the things that I did, or I'm going to have my butt kicked by the other team. And I just didn't want to lose. And for me, it was just hungry to get life back. And I think that that's what everybody has to have, is that why
Absolutely.
they want to get
I
better.
love that. Please feel free to ask questions. Pari, I see yours, and I will get to them shortly. Liz, during this process, Chris spoke about just now about how you supported him and helped guide him, and really break down life into manageable chunks and guideposts that he could focus on and move. Are you just naturally gifted? Where did you how did you in essence, well, let me ask you this. Was it hard to sort of balance being a mom at that time, but also a therapist in some ways, but not cross that line to lose that relationship? Like, how did you navigate helping Chris during that time?
Yeah, I never ever felt that I need to be a therapist. He had a great therapist. I never felt that. Selena said exactly what happened to Chris mentally after his therapy. He was focused on the time he lost and being behind. And it was very hard, and it did take years for him to really lose that. And he was moving forward. But I think, as you also said, when you come to accept that this is where I am, then you can jump forward. It's not as hard to move forward. And I tried bringing him stories of all the people that started at 40 and 50 and 60, and that life is not over. Of course, from my perspective, being older, I knew that his life was not over, and the fact that it went a different direction did not mean that it was over, that it was just going to be different. But when you're in it, that's not how you see it. Yeah, Chris was very lost. Some things were very simple things that he had never learned, that he would normally have learned, and other things were being lost, what to do. And so he and I don't know if he still has them, because we did this so often. We'd sit down and, okay, what is it that's important to you? And we divided into categories. And then we'd say, okay, so if this is what you want, what do you have to do? And we divide it into like activities to make this goal happen. And then we'd talk about do 2 activities this week, because he was overwhelmed with the idea of, I have nothing, but this is where I want to go. So it had to be broken down. But we did that really a lot for probably 2 years as he was continuing to do his own, ERP and such. The recovery, those 2 years was very up and down. He had some really horrible days. And we've said this before. I would just tell him, you know what? Why don't you just stop for today? Tomorrow's going to be so much better. And it was. And after a bit of that, I think he came to believe that if I'm having a horrible day, just stop. Tomorrow's going to be okay. And those horrible days just diminished with time. And it got steadier. But it's real important to know that recovery is not a linear kind of thing, and to not give up on the bad day at all. But we mainly talked about where he wanted to go with his life and how to break it down so it was doable. And one of the first things he did was get that volunteer job, which brought home the cutest little puppy in the world. But he just put some things into play, because wow, all of us, whether you have OCD or not, can sit and dream about what we want to do, but we have to break it down into how do we make that dream come true. So that's what I helped him with mostly, but he continued to do his ERP on his own. He never, gave up or said, well, I'm done, I don't want to do this anymore. So he continued to recover. And we've often said we think it was probably about 2 years before, really would say that OCD was no longer like the focus of his life, and he had put all kinds of stuff back in his life.
I love that, Liz. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, and that's how we did. Yeah,
she's
Also
the
love it.
list queen.
So's my mom. Wow, so many similarities.
They're gonna be besties after this.
They are. She has yellow paper everywhere with lists.
Yes.
So yeah, and I love some of the things that Liz says. I always say, more good days than bad, and it's okay to have the bad days, but you want to strive for more good than bad. There's so much in this story that I personally relate to. Chris, and I love the way you said it, and it's so true, Elizabeth. I don't know why I'm changing different. I'm going to call you different things. But it's so true that it becomes exponential growth. It feels like you're trudging along, sort of working your way through molasses, and then suddenly, you're making these huge leaps and bounds, and it grows and grows and grows and grows, and it's such a cool experience. So Chris, when you started jumping, when you went from crawling to jumping, what did that look like after that 2 years? What did your sort of the next phase of your life look like?
Yeah, I remember like a big moment. I don't know if it was like an intervention per se, but I just remember my mom, my sister, and I all talking together, and my mom saying that to me and my sister saying that, like, look, we see you just sort of just kind of existing, and you're more than that. And I remember having a heart-to-heart with myself after that meeting and just saying, look, like, I didn't know what I was dealing with and I didn't have control over it, but now I do. And I've chosen, rightfully so, I deserve to be mad at the world and angry, but I've chosen to sit in that swamp water for 2 years, and I need to like bounce back. And so things started to turn around for me. So I ended up getting a job. It was the first job back, because for me, a job was traumatic. My mom had to actually go and quit the last job I had before I got sick. I had a breakdown.
Sure. My mom did. My mom quit my job for me. Oh my God, Mom, if you're watching, I'll never forget that day. I had a breakdown. I couldn't go into work, and she quit my job for me. She called. I didn't want to do it. Oh, I didn't know that. That's so weird. Go on. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was working at a job at the Irvine Spectrum, which is a big shopping center. It's Christmas time, and employees had to park a certain place. And I was at work. I was triggered. I'd already started being late because of the OCD, and I was super triggered by everything. And I'm like trying to get my clothes on and everything. And like one of the security guards come over, is like, hey, you're an employee, you can't park here. And the thought of like going back in my car and driving and moving and being late, I just had a breakdown. I started bawling. I left the parking lot. I parked in a different parking lot like a half an hour away and just broke down. My mom had to quit that job for me. And so a job was traumatic for me. I was really nervous, but a friend of mine that I met through martial arts had said, hey, at the gym, LA Fitness, there's a need for somebody to work 2 shifts a week, 4 hours each shift. I remember talking to my mom and feeling confident. And then over the years, I ended up moving up. I worked for corporate a little bit. I ran their gyms and stuff. And so once I started to impress myself, meaning like I was able to prove to myself I could do it, I could go back to school and get through classes. And I think that was the biggest shift for me, because school was horrendous for me during OCD. I was never passing classes. I was dropping classes. I had more W's and F's than anything else. And so once I returned to school and passed a class and had an A or a B, or went back to a job and stuck with a job, or started dating or friends, I started to feel some normalcy, and it felt like all the OCD treatment I had done paid off. And then I didn't really want to go back to OCD. I mean, my life looked so different. And so I'd be out with friends and an intrusive thought would come up and I'd want to go home. And I was like, but I'm having so much fun. I don't want to listen to it anymore. So the more I found out what is it that I enjoy, who am I as a person, what makes me unique, what are the things that I like doing, and I actually started doing that, I started to feel like myself again. And that was so important. It finally made all the hard work worth it.
Selena, how was your life impacted as Chris's life began to improve?
I think, we just kind of were able to, just, I don't know, be friends again, and just kind of, I don't know, a lot less stressful, a lot less negative of that tension, and not knowing what he was experiencing, obviously in high school before he was diagnosed. But I still think like we said, it was just really hard to watch, because it's weird. I never remember anything, but I remember that intervention. I just wanted to like shake him and be like, stop being, saying this to yourself. Like, mom was always good about saying, celebrate the little things, celebrate the little successes, because it is major when you have OCD. Those little successes maybe look little to other people, but for you, I mean, you couldn't do that 3 years ago. You couldn't do that 4 years, actually. So celebrate it, because you can keep motivating yourself. As he said, I think once he finally, saw that, and I started to feel like, okay, this is Chris, because as he said, I mean, we're complete opposite. Mom used to say, like, I'd be the toe toucher of the pool, like, what's the temperature? What do we do? And Chris would just barrel by you and cannonball and didn't care. And I remember shaking him and saying, where are you? Like, that is you. Like, you wouldn't let people talk to you like this, or pardon me. You wouldn't let something like this, or a person do this or talk to you like this. Where are you? And I think he just, like he said, he just kind of woke up and was like, yeah, like, I'm not this person. And where's that fire? I remember saying that. I was like, where's your fire? Where's something? Like, you are not dead. You are alive. Yes, it's older than you wanted to be doing these things, but go, like, get moving and put some joy in your life. You've had no joy for so long. Like, let yourself experience this. And I think also something mom's good about that I've internalized as well is, Chris and I in the past would be like, okay, well, we failed the morning. We didn't do what we wanted. Day's over, day's ruined. And mom would say, that's the morning. You still have the afternoon and you still have the evening. There's still time to do something in this day. It's not a wash. And just kind of saying, okay, give yourself grace, Chris. Like, that didn't work out in the morning. What can you do now? It does not have to be a wasted time. And then it was more exciting to see, okay, here's Chris, like, what's he going to do? Because as you know, Chris is multi-talented, and it was like, pick one, pick something, get started. Like, you have so many God-given talents. You can do anything. And meanwhile, some of us can't. So stop wasting that. I can't draw. I can't do video. I can't do all this stuff. Like, I mean, you should see some of his drawings he would do when we were kids. And I remember one of them, I said, oh my God, is that the comic book? Did you trace it? And he's like, oh no, freehand. And I was, stop. That's what I remember bringing up to him, is like, remember all that stuff. Like, you've got something, and start figuring out what your passion is.
I love that. And Megan wrote, it's really nice to hear how much moms have been a part of your journeys toward healing. And they really have. Moms, and dads in so many people's cases as well. We have to give credit to, both parents if they're in lives, if not. But yeah, I wouldn't be where I am without my parents. I'd probably, frankly, be in a hospital somewhere or dead. So they, their decisions were the reason I'm here today. And I know Chris feels the same way. So great comment. We'll be getting to questions in just about 5 minutes. So please feel free to load them in. Pari, I'm gonna come to you first. Just a couple more points though. Liz, once Chris was sort of out of the swamp, as he says, what did it look like for your family to start to heal as a unit, as three of you? What did that look like?
It was nice not to have Chris be the complete focus. That was nice. Selena was done with college. I think just over time, we have become such a strong trio, a unit. Chris and Selena have become inseparable. I know they have their fights. And I know some of them, sometimes I get a call, I'm not talking to her again, or I'm not ever speaking to him again. But they are incredibly close. And I'm sure that the experience they had has helped with that. But I think all three of us have been very close. And I think there's a lot on the OCD that has made Chris' life richer. Not that I, of course, would wish it on anybody, but a lot of growing up, a lot of maturity, a lot of opportunity to be who he really is. And I think it has brought us as a family so much closer that we would not have been. With Chris, what I was trying to do was help him through things and move him forward to independence, where, what we would have done back at 16 or 18 if he wasn't sick. So I was more than happy to back off as I could. And I'm sure he was happy to have me back off. But, I think I had more time for Selena and more time to, just for us to be more of a family instead of focused on OCD all the time.
Yeah. Go ahead, Selena.
Oh, sorry. No, I touched on it last time, but I think it just kind of, as she said, to give us more an opportunity to just be honest and be able to communicate without so many of the emotions that were going on at the time at those ages and things, and just to come at it with a new perspective of, oh, that's what you're going through. Oh my God, like everything makes sense now, and kind of talk about that. And I think continue to be with everything of that communication and that honesty, like we're calling each other out on things or stuff that really just helps us move forward and not sit and wallow in things or let things build up. I think, as she said, kind of having to navigate all this has just some of those same skill sets and ways we communicate and things just carried even into today, non-OCD related and everything. So just, yeah, seeing how, things are going to happen to each of us and how kind of we can still be a unit and help each other through
Absolutely.
those.
Let's touch on some of this stuff quickly because people are bringing up some good points, and I also want to get to where Chris and you all are now as well. So we'll make the most of the next 21 minutes. Pari, and I'm going to hit up your question prior, so don't worry, I see it. But Pari touches on blame, and we're kind of hinting around blame and guilt and so forth. So Pari asks Chris and Selena, this is at 12:17 p.m. Jess, at that time, and I think this is the time when you were really kind of like going through it. Did any of you blame Liz for what you were going through? Did you blame your mom for any of this?
No, I think, it makes me sad sometimes because I think there are people in the OCD community that do like blame family and stuff. I mean, I did when I was in high school. I really was upset at both my mom and my sister, but not because of me as a person. It was because I lived with them. And when my OCD was the worst, they were doing things around the house that were triggering the OCD. Or I would get mad when my mom and I would carpool up to my treatment because I felt like her car was contaminated. She had tented her house for termites, and I felt the chemicals was going to give me cancer. And so I didn't like going in her car, and I had to do like a whole mental kind of compulsion just to get in. And so when I was at my worst, absolutely. I mean, anybody that was doing something that would trigger me, I'd blame strangers because I'd buy all my shopping supplies and I'd be going to my car and somebody would walk by and bump into my bag, or somebody would smell and as I walked by of like cigarettes or, just body odor. And I'd think, oh, now all these products are contaminated. So I would blame obviously the outside world. Like, you guys are going to make me take another hour shower, or now I have to go home and do all these rituals and I won't sleep. once I went to treatment, I really grasped the idea of like, I'm in control of facing my fears and I can't expect everybody else around to do what I need them to do. That's when it was finally hit me like, no, nobody else is to blame, just living their best life. I need to work on the OCD. It's my responsibility. So that was the big shift for me, because yes, there's a lot of anger. We touched on it last time. There was anger at anybody that did anything that caused my OCD to spike.
I felt the same way. My mom, unknowingly, because you don't know until you know about OCD, and that parenting is counterintuitive to the treatment of OCD. I remember when I first got into treatment and they started, not giving in to my compulsions and not accommodating me, and I was so angry at them. I felt like they were, as I was going further down into my rock bottom, I truly blamed them. I thought it was their fault. They were causing it. If they just stopped and gave me what I was getting before, then I would be okay. But like, this is your fault. You're doing this. I remember one time I was in residential and I was calling my mom. I called my mom, I think 300 times in a day, and she was told not to pick up, and she wasn't picking up. So I would just call over and over again until she picked up. And I remember thinking, if she just pick up, we wouldn't have to go through this. Like, this is your fault. Like, you're causing me to do this. So, it's really interesting. I totally relate. Liz, I think this is important to touch on a little bit, which is, when you start to get insight and education into OCD and how to treat it, did you feel a sense of guilt for what you had done? Not what you had done, but
Absolutely. I should have
you get what I'm saying.
recognized
I'm trying to be. Go ahead. Sorry.
I should have recognized it. I should have known. I should have understood. I should have everything. And I can tell myself logically a million times, why should I have known my son had mental illness? It's not like it was in my family that I would recognize it. It's not like everybody talked about it. This is back in 2002. People didn't walk around talking about mental illness like they do now. So logically, I would tell anybody else, there is no reason that you would have just said, oh, Chris is being so difficult, he must have mental illness. But that doesn't stop me as a mom from feeling guilty. And Selena touched on guilt. And, the guilt doesn't ever go away. But I think now I'm speaking for Selena, so maybe I'm wrong. I'll speak for myself. It's the same message that we were giving Chris. You lost those years. You can continue to focus on that and you'll lose another couple of years. So we can focus on our guilt. I don't ever justify it as far as, well, it happened, get over it. It's always there, but I can't fix it. I can't go back and say, yes, if I was me today and I went back, I would say, oh, my son has mental illness and get him treatment. I can't do that. I can't go back and spend more time with Selena and give her the time that she deserved. I can't fix it. So it's always there underneath, but I can't make it cripple me either, because how is that benefiting either of my kids if I sit around all day going, oh, I was so bad, this. I just have to continue to feel it, but not make it the focus of my life, because I can't fix it. Selena can't go back and fix, her guilt. We just have to keep going forward.
Well, I want to touch on, because so I make sure I answer her question too. At the time, absolutely, yeah. I mean, because, and that's what I think a lot of people will relate to, is, did I blame mom in a sense of, yes, because I would think at that time, I thought it was his personality. He was doing these things on purpose. It was his behavior. And I thought, be a tough parent, take this away. Why does he have this? Why does he have this? Mm-hmm. And now, obviously, none of that matters, because that wasn't Chris. It's when you get to finally be on this end that you go, wow, okay, no, that's separate from who he is. That was based all on OCD. Those reactions, that behavior was his OCD. So I think to answer her question, yes, absolutely at that time, because that's all the information I had. Do I now? Absolutely not. And then especially not with her being exhausted and stuff, as I'm an adult and you go to work and you pay bills, and I don't have a family. I don't have kids and I don't have a mortgage. So I can't even do it right now on my own. I don't even know how she did it. So absolutely not. And that's why I tell her, even though she won't listen, to stop. We can go back now and see we did the best with the information we had. And of course we wouldn't do it the same, but that's a major point I want people to realize is, parents and especially is, just as I said, we thought it was his behavior, his personality, and it's easy to blame back then, but not now with everything
Thank you, Selena. Y'all are amazing. And honestly, this needs to be a 3-hour conversation. I'm like freaking out going, there's 14 minutes, crap. There's so much more to
I'll
cover.
stop talking so much.
No. That was not on you. That was
No.
I'm glad you chimed in. We will get to what you're doing now, Chris, I swear. I do want to get to some questions. I have one more piece. Don't hate me, everyone, which is conversely, and I know I feel, Chris, do you have guilt sometimes about what you feel like? And we shouldn't, because it's a disorder, it's a disease. We didn't ask for it. It's not a decision. But did you have guilt about, what you put your family through, what OCD put your family through?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I look back to my behavior a lot of times and it just doesn't equal who I am. And I got painted, because of the OCD, I got painted not just from my family, but from teachers, from counselors, as a very difficult child. And I can look back now and I can see clients that were my age when I was sick. And I know that they're not that kind of kid, but they're getting told by their teachers and their counselors and their family that they're difficult. And it's like, I just remember constantly, even as a kid, having these things in my head and needing to do certain things to feel safe. And so, I'm sad for my younger self, but I think back to especially high school, because at least when I was struggling the most, it was self-inflicted after I moved out, like the suicide attempt, the isolation, the alcohol abuse, all that was very by myself. I was only my roommate at the time was really suffering, but in high school, the stuff that I did to my sister, I, as an older brother, one of the roles I pride myself in is protecting both of my younger sisters, especially Selena. We're just, we've 2 years apart, been closer. And so knowing that for so many years, I was the cause of her pain, breaks my heart, especially when she's in high school going through her own stuff and trying to figure out her own life. It's such a difficult time. And knowing that, we were so close and then I'm the cause of a lot of her pain. I always feel guilty, even though my mom was a mom and signed up for this, she really didn't. And so putting her through that was really hard. And I know that was a big piece for me. I ended up seeing a therapist after my OCD specialist, and more so for these things. I didn't really need help with ERP, but I just needed to heal because I just was a mess after. And that was a piece that I spent a lot of therapy on, was just, I've caused so much havoc to them. I've caused havoc to the family members I've lived with. My younger sister used to not be able to sleep at night because her room had the laundry in it, and I was keeping her up, and she's 11 trying to go to school. And I just felt like a bad human being. I just felt like a really bad person. And that was some of my journey, is just, I hope, and we've talked about it since, it's I hope everybody recognizes there was never any ill intent. It was the disorder, and this isn't who I am. And I think the one thing that I hope, my family sees and people sees is I genuinely enjoy giving back. I genuinely enjoy being there for other people. And that is who I am. And so knowing that my true self has kind of been shown is how I've been able to grasp with the guilt and all that stuff from the past.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate you. Let's jump into questions and then we'll wrap up where you all are. I'm going to combine Pari's question and Felice's question. I'm going to use Pari's question at 12:14 p.m. How do you invite other family members to show love and support to my son suffering from OCD and me, instead of vanishing or criticizing? Let's also put Felice's question up there at 12:25 p.m. Just how do you get your loved one to get to the why? There seems to be no hope. So actually, those aren't. Maybe I misread it. How do you get your loved one? I'm assuming the loved one with OCD. Totally kidding. Totally different questions. Don't mind me. Anyway, let's go back to Pari's question. Sometimes I make mistakes. It's fine. It happens once a year. So I'm going to throw that out to Liz and Selena, honestly. Jesse, you can take that question now. We'll come back to Lisa's question. I'm going to come back to Liz or Selena. Feel free. How do you help other family members understand what's going on, especially if they're not, if they're closed off to it? How hard do you push? What ways do you show them? And when do you just kind of say, okay, that's their opinion, I'm going to move forward? I'll throw that to Selena first.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely still probably have some of that in our family. And, I think if someone's open, but just doesn't kind of know where to start, because I didn't even understand any of this in the beginning, you can be there through the education. I mean, I think mom will say, with some of our family, it was just the lack of communication, of expressing this is what he's going through. We kind of just kept it with us, or mom, I mean, if she's going to do it, she's going to get him through this, and didn't explain to everyone, oh, actually, this is really a severe disorder. And this is why Chris is, doing this or this or this, and kind of involve them for them to understand, and to understand that that's not his personality. This is OCD. We're working on it. Here's what we're doing. So if someone is open, but just kind of doesn't know where to start, giving them kind of that education, and just being honest, and having the person with OCD be honest with them if they want to talk about it, or mom talk about it with other people. I know mom and Chris run a really great family group. I suggest that to people a lot, of if you kind of just don't know where to start. A lot of the family groups or support groups will have, loved ones, and invite people with OCD, so you can kind of understand each other's perspective and see what is that person dealing with. Because as mom and I know, we will never understand what you and Chris went through, and what it's like in your head. So it kind of helps you to understand the disorder, as well as for the person with OCD to understand, kind of the effects on everyone else, and not in a guilt trip way, but just, to see the full picture. And then for us, there are just some people who won't. And it's kind of like, okay, great. Well, that's, we're moving on from that, and you'll have the comments and you'll have the things, and you just don't care because you can't. All you can do is control yourself and the people who are willing to be a part of it. But maybe some of them just need education.
Yeah, thank you, Selena. Any hot tips, Liz, on ways?
Well, yeah, I've said before, what I did wrong is I didn't involve my sisters, and it was simply, why should I put this burden on them? It's not their thing. And once we did involve them and provide education, like Selena said, they were much different about it. They understood. They had no idea what was going on. That was 100% my fault. I didn't share it. I didn't want to. And then, as she also said, Chris has part of his family that has never, I don't even know if they've ever watched his videos or anything to really, and very early in his treatment, I realized that they weren't going to jump on board. And fortunately, I just left them behind, because I did not want to struggle to continue to try to get them to understand. It was wasting my energy. I was able to let them that's that, and move on with what we needed to do. But yes, Liz, some people will not.
I think that's great. And to go take it a step further, because we get this question so much. How did you approach? And I think this is like from a very specific, in a very specific way. How did you first approach family? What did that look like? Because I think that's what people struggle with, or if maybe they've reacted a little weirdly to it. How or what did you use or do to kind of try to engage in a conversation about Chris, to ascertain honestly whether they're going to be an ally or not?
Ooh, do you guys remember? Because
I do.
Oh, good. Thank you.
So my mom's sisters really value academia. And after we were the keynote speakers in 2011, we did a talk for USC, and they filmed it. They filmed our keynote. And when it was put up on the USC's like official website page, and my mom shared it, because USC had like stamped their approval, that was the first time ever that her sisters like reached out to me and was like, oh my God, we never knew you were going through this. We watched it. We didn't know it was like that serious. And, okay. Barbara Van Oppen spoke at the beginning of it, who's at USC, and talked a little bit about OCD before we jumped in. So that was like the game changer for that side. And then my dad, God bless him, has gotten really into watching these live streams, and that's been the first time that he's like kind of reached out. So I think it was just a lack of interest from some and a lack of us sharing, and that was our downfall. And so for the question, it's sharing education and knowing when to let go if someone's just not ready.
That's great. Go ahead,
and
Liz.
I want to throw in, and Chris, I don't even know if you know this. My little sister, when we were going to speak, it was 2011 at the keynote, as a keynote, she said, "Oh, it's in San Diego. I'll drive down for the day and hear you." And I told her, no, that's okay. You don't need to. Because I thought, I didn't want her to have to, pay to get in and do that. And I look at that as how ridiculous. But that's my thinking, was I didn't want to bother anybody. Yeah.
Thank you for that. That's great insight, because I think people always wonder how to approach it. So, Chris, 12:25 p.m. Felice, how do you get your loved one to get to the why? Why do they need to change? Why do we need to engage in compulsions? Why do we need to get uncomfortable?
I think once I got hope, that other, I'll never forget, there was a girl sitting at my second appointment who was having her last appointment. And I was talking to her and she's like, "Yeah, I'm doing my last appointment." And I was like, "Wait, there's a last appointment? Like, you get better and you can go on with your life." And so I always think if somebody doesn't have a why, it's sharing anything that Ethan's done, Liz has done, any of the national and then Lead Advocate, sharing success stories, because to me, that's what gave me the hope. And then what my therapist worked on is, she's like, "What makes Chris Chris?" Like, if I asked your friends, "Tell me a little bit about Chris," what would be some of the things they'd point out? And once I said those to her, she's like, "Okay, let's make the exposures around being able to get you back into that." And so once I was able to do ERP to get back into martial arts, tennis, Spanish, getting a job at the gym, going back to school, traveling, all of that, I could taste hope. So the way to get to the why is to tap back into, like, who makes you. You're a unique individual. Your husband Felice is somebody that he has a set of things that makes him different. You fell in love with when you guys were together, got married, etc. Or I'm not sure if you're married. So it's having him tap back into that and making the treatment. I tell clients that aren't on board yet, I'm like, let's forget this whole ERP thing. You want to go back to playing lacrosse? Let's only make the treatment about getting you back into lacrosse. And so that's what my therapist did for me. And then the other stuff came along with it.
Great. Thank you, Chris. I know we're closing in on time. I just asked Jess if we could maybe hang out for 5 more minutes. Is everybody okay for that?
Yes.
Thank you. Awesome. So I want to reach out to Megan's question. We'll take this one last. At 12:39 p.m., did either of you, Ethan or Chris, feel insecurity or shame due to perceptions of others judging you for your relationship with your mothers, thinking you were too dependent? I had such feelings. Oh my God, this is such a great question. I have so many things to say. Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the relationship my mom and I had, I mean, I don't know if my mom remembers this, but I had OCD where I needed my mom to approve everything. And there was a girl that asked me to be her boyfriend in 8th grade. And I told her, I need to go home and ask my mom. But my OCD latched onto my mom as like the answer of all questions. And I would call her constantly. So I was really reliant on my mom. And I don't know if my mom knows this, but my BDD therapist, Ari Winograd, said to me, he said, "I think you need to disengage with your mom." And I think my mom was ready. I think the OCD wasn't ready for me. But when we shifted from me relying so heavily and being dependent into being more like equals and friends, that was the best, because it forced me to grow up and mature and live on my own and take care of myself. So yeah, I mean, I know some therapists, family members, etc., thought I was way too close with my mom because of what we had gone through. And I think they don't understand, though, what it's like to have somebody by your side fighting an illness.
Thank you, Chris. I'm going to take just a few seconds, because this is where kind of Chris and I's story branches off a little bit. Chris moved out on his own. He kind of did his own thing away from his parents. I lived my 20s working as an actor, and I wouldn't do anything without my mother. I was scared to death. So I could operate within the city, even though I'd call her a lot, but anything that required travel, anything that required anything outside of my safe zone, she had to come with me. And I made up every excuse ever. And it was super embarrassing. She went on shoots with me and I would tell people she was my personal assistant, I would call her Liz, and I'm not even kidding. I flew her to I would write her into my contracts. Like, I went to shoot a Shakira commercial in the Bahamas. She came with me. I was like, she's my assistant. I would shoot other commercials. She was my assistant. I joke now that she would have gone on dates with me if I was, if I was dating at the table. I'll never forget my boss, who I was working for at the time. We had to do a casting. I was working for a casting director, and we did a casting in Orlando. Orlando's 2 hours away from our house in South Florida at the time. And I told, and I had to go. And I told my parents, like, I can't go. And they're like, and this is part of the accommodating, right? They go, well, I said, if I get you the rate, the conference rate, can you guys maybe go and be there while I'm there? And they said, yeah, sure. So they went and I went. And then I remember that my boss at that time saw them at the hotel and came up to me, and she's like, do you know your parents are here? I was like, they are? What are they doing here? And then, like, my mom's like, yeah. I mean, I just remember so many things. So yeah, I mean, it was really tricky, and I felt like, I felt less than for all of it. And at the same time, it felt like what was necessary to function, and obviously if you hear those stories, and there's a zillion more like that, if you think about then, once entering treatment, my parents having to choose to not do those things, and they did those things since I was born. So, like, to have to then let go completely, that's a hard thing to do. All right, last but not least, where is everyone today?
Yeah, maybe I'll jump in. My mom and I kind of decided after my treatment, I wanted to advocate, because I just thought that I kind of got thrown into advocacy. My mom remembers this. Literally, it was when I was finishing treatment, my psychiatrist reached out and said, hey, Montel Williams is shooting a show in New York. Would you want to go? And they want your mom on. And I'm thinking, like, oh, that's going to be in 4 or 5 months. And they're like, you leave this Thursday. And so my mom and I agreed to do it. We flew out to New York. We were on the Montel Williams show together. She was on camera, which I know she wanted to crawl out of her skin because she hates that kind of stuff. But after I did that, I was getting bombarded with messages from people all over the country that had seen it on Facebook, and they were just like, oh my God, like, everything you talked about, I have, et cetera. And so, for me, it kind of full circle, becoming a therapist and treating OCD and related disorders. For me, I never had that goal. I always enjoyed my life in entertainment and wanted to advocate. But when I was helping run support groups, I had so many people that were like, why can't you be my therapist? I think you could really help me. And so I went back to school to be a therapist. But for me, being a therapist and advocacy, how I heal is knowing that there's going to be people that haven't gone through what you went through, Ethan, what Liz goes through, what I went through. I mean, our stories are horrific because we didn't have national lead advocates to guide us through. And so that's been my passion. And then it's been an enjoyment because my mom and I run a support group together and are on the board of OCD Southern California. Selena works at the Gateway Institute for me. So we have that connection.
Were you?
With
I was
me.
about to
I
say,
no.
I need a raise.
No. I meant with me, not for me. Sorry. Freudian slip, right? But no, so that, but we also have our lives outside of it. I mean, we're close and we enjoy each other's company and have things that we enjoy.
I love that. Selena, last thoughts in terms of where you are, what you're feeling.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's been, just watching them, first of all, of course, how proud they are that I've always said they could have easily just walked away and been like, Chris got help, bye. And that's why I think it's so important what you do, what the other Liz does, what Chris does, all of that is just putting faces to this, putting just a realistic aspect to it, because I think there's a lot of people probably at home or watching this that, are beating themselves up thinking like maybe they just see a portion of what you guys are doing and think, oh my God, I'm not trying hard enough. I'm not doing enough. So then when you guys are so honest about, no, it was years or it was ugly or it was messy, someone can see, okay, I'm going at a good pace. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. This just isn't a quick and easy solution. Therefore, it's not me not trying hard enough. It's just, here's realistically what it may look like. And I mean, I think, my God, I'm sure if you guys could say, just speaking to people every day and what they're experiencing is just be nice to people. I mean, my God, it is so rough out there right now, just talking to families and people with OCD and what they're experiencing. And I think, it just makes you even more compassionate of a lot of people are going through a lot of stuff. And the more we can all just be a little more supportive or share stories or help each other, anything that we can do so that everyone experiencing this can be on your end if they want to, but of advocacy, but also just on your end of success and get to enjoy life.
Thank you, Selena, and thank you so much for being as vulnerable and open as you've been today. Liz, going to end with you. Final thoughts.
Okay. Yeah, as Chris mentioned, we run a support group. We have for 9 years now. We are.
Ethan was on it last time. Woo, woo.
Yeah, I heard it went amazing.
Oh yes, we had wonderful guest speaker, Ethan and his girlfriend. Anyhow, it's been wonderful. We set up the support group. We wanted to do that for families back in 2012, and we've kept it going because it's a reciprocal kind of thing. We know that we're providing information and hope and networking and such connections for people, and I walk away all the time just admiring so many journeys that people have been on, so many different journeys and what they've been able to do. So we do that. And I also am on the board of the OCD Southern California. We put on a annual conference. We do other things during the year. So basically, it's important to me to just stay in the community, provide any hope or any information, any connections that I can provide. And then I get back everything from people that are living some wonderful experiences, getting better, going on, moving on. But we've all felt like providing something back to the community has been so enriching to us and so important. And, we wish it had been there for us, but, it was different times.
Somebody is really trying to get a hold of you, Mom.
I keep hanging up on them.
Work. They can't do it without you.
I called her 200 times.
Your mom won't answer the phone anymore, so I'm just going to start calling random people.
Another Liz.
Yeah. Super quick. Where can people find information about the support group if they want to join? Nick asked that question.
Yeah, so if you want to join our family and loved one support group, it's every second Saturday of the month from 11 to 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's absolutely free. We always have guest speakers. We had Ethan Smith and Katie O'Dunn. They talked about the relationship and fighting with OCD. So the best thing to do is you can either email my mom directly. It's L Trondsen. So it's our last name, just the L in front of it, at gmail.com. Or you can email OCD Southern California at info@ocdsocal.org. And then we can direct you to that. And we would love to have you every second Saturday of the month.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. I'm going to wrap this up super quick. Yes, it is online via Zoom, so it's all virtual. I want to thank Chris, Liz, and Selena for joining us for part 2. This was incredible, and your authenticity and just willingness to be vulnerable and real, and just your journey is so inspiring and incredible. And it's the proof is in the pudding, and you're the proof. And am I the pudding? Either way. Either way, I love pudding. It's so good. Anyway, there's hope, there's help, and hopefully, this inspires you to let you know that, you can get there too. And there's so many people here for you. Just super quick, I want to thank Jess and the IOCDF. If you want to find out more about programming, you can visit iocdf.org/peace of mind. Normally I have a whole thing, but I know we're running way behind. So please go on the IOCDF website. Online OCD camp is coming up. And also we're trying to raise $150,000 by end of year. So if you can give, we'd really appreciate it. Finally, tomorrow, Chris has another live stream. He's all over the place at 12 p.m. Eastern. New year, new you. His titles are so much better than mine.
That's next Wednesday. That's next Wednesday.
It says 12:20 Thursday. It says tomorrow 12:23. Okay, well, we can discuss it later. It says you might have something tomorrow that you don't know about, Chris.
Surprise.
Next Wednesday.
You better not sign me up.
All right. Well, that's why you should visit Peace of Mind to try. But that's what I pulled. So lastly, if you have questions, I know there's a lot of people had additional questions, comments, support. Please email the IOCDF at info@iocdf.org. We'll put that up on the screen for you. If you have additional questions, or we didn't get to your questions for Chris, Liz, or Selena, please feel free to email this email address. Just put in the subject line question for Chris, Liz, or Selena. We'll make sure they get the questions, and we'll get you the answers back. With that, thank you so much for joining us. A very, very, very happy holidays, whatever you observe. And again, thank you to everyone and have a beautiful afternoon. Thanks.
Bye.